Edgar is a gift.
All right, sit back, relax, and strap it down. White Sox baseball coming your way.
Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to a Word Hole Media presentation of Major League A-Hole.
Ryan, welcome to Sox Type Major League A-Holes. This is episode 19 already of Sox Type Thing, as we're
forgetting to get back in the groove and look up a number, a memorable 19.
Yeah. I forgot about that. I was supposed to do that. I did that all last season. I'm falling short of my duties this year, but
folks, we're still in preseason mode, so cut us some slack.
Actually, can you think of any 19? That's kind of a hockey number. I think I don't think of that as a baseball numbers.
Well, we'll skip it this time. 20 will be fun.
Figure it out for 20. Yeah,
20 will be fun.
Well, we are inching ever closer to the end of spring training and opening day. We are looking at the conclusion of the World Baseball Classic last night. We'll be talking about that. You have your White Sox escaped injury throughout that perilous journey through the World Baseball Classic.
We did better than the Mets did.
Yeah, but despite your efforts to jinx that somehow with some poorly timed texts and tweets that I could not believe, and that actually is going to lead us into a Bob's Bad Tweet, a staple of our other show, In the Hole. We'll tie that all together. We've got José Abreu. He might be a controversial asshole of the week. This is a little bit older news, so it's not necessarily this week, but there's some things he said in the past few weeks that are kind of surprising. So it might be a controversial asshole of the week. The final resolution, hopefully, of the Mike Clevinger situation that we've spoken of before. So we need to conclude that saga at least.
Yeah, that'd probably be pretty. Not a lot to say there, but I feel like we owe a final thoughts on that.
Yeah, I really don't want to talk about that any longer than we already have, but. We have the resurrection of a new segment from last year, Panic or Patience. When it comes to Dylan Cease specifically, this one, we'll go over your thoughts on that and mine as well. We have a really cool YouTube documentary about the last Comiskey, about the end of the original Comiskey Park that I've actually only seen the first 2 episodes. I think you've seen the whole series, but check that. We'll talk about our thoughts on that. What else do we have here? We've got the final results of your A-hole poll. Yes. Who should be the starting pitcher on opening day for your Chicago White Sox?
That's right.
All right. Well, I guess without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the news.
Well, the World Baseball Classic came to a thrilling end last night.
It did.
I have to say, I think we talked about this a little bit on In the Hole. I really enjoyed it, and it really got me like I'm ready for the baseball season to start. It was better than watching the bullshit spring training games and
fake baseball.
Watching guys work on a changeup for an entire game and getting killed, and everyone overreacting, foreshadowing.
I have not watched any spring training. I watched a few innings here and there a few weeks ago, but since the World Baseball Classic started, I don't think I've watched any spring training whatsoever. So it's been a nice way to fill up some dark March evenings.
Right. Yeah.
Some serious action.
Yeah. I mean, the games are all great, and yesterday's was a nail biter. How it should be. But I did want to bring up, Mark DeRosa, not really a manager by trade, probably trying out to see if anyone's interested in him, maybe being a manager now, a little D-row manager, World Baseball Classic. But a guy who's classically known for his late inning heroics is Tim Anderson, and you watched the game, right? So the American, I know you watched the game. I turned it on late and thought something had happened to.
That's right.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, he hit a home run. Oh, that's what you meant. But
Trey Turner. I was lamenting the fact that the Cubs had not signed Trey Turner
or Schwarbeast,
or they non-tendered Schwarbeast.
Non-tendered, yeah.
So many years ago.
But after those, I think that was the first and like maybe the fourth or fifth when Schwarber hit the home run. After that, the American,
such a beast.
The USA team was pretty flat, and it was coming up to Tim Anderson's spot in the order to kind of get a rally started. And we bypassed Tim Anderson for now. This is probably going to sound just ludicrous because it's one really good player for another good player.
Yeah.
But for Jeff McNeil,
the NL batting champ.
I know, but like Tim always comes up huge in key situations.
Yeah, and on a huge stage. I mean, he did in Iowa in the cornfield. That's one of his most famous moments, hitting the walk-off against the Yankees last summer.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'd think that would at least be in DeRosa's mind, but that's interesting because I didn't even notice that had happened. I know you're keen to that, obviously, because you're the Sox fan and the TA fan. So I didn't even notice that. But I'm wondering, did you hear any explanation for that, or was it even a story?
No, it's not a story.
It's
not a story probably outside of White Sox Twitter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Everyone was losing their mind, and I didn't completely lose my mind because I'm almost saying it in jest in a way, because you're replacing. It's not like he's pinch hitting him with Luray Garcia,
right?
Or Lurie or Lurie, but like Tim's faster too. So you want speed on the base pass at that point to get that run across. So I don't know. It's a little interesting, but not super controversial. Just worth bringing up since this is a White Sox podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I guess it'd be one thing, like you said, if they brought in an inferior player, but it's hard to question the logic of bringing in the NL batting champ instead. But I was wondering if it had come up in a press conference, how did you make that change or whatever. It wasn't a game-changing move by any means.
No, because McNeil ended up walking. It wasn't like he didn't get on or anything.
Yeah.
But Timmy probably would have hit a home run to tie the game.
Could have. Didn't have that chance.
No, and then you had. We'll switch. I feel we have to talk about this, even though it's not White Sox related. But how embarrassing it must have been for Mike Trout to not be able to hit a ball down the middle of the plate thrown by his teammate. Like you can tell Trout is older now, because I guarantee 2 years ago or 3 years ago, that ball is like 500 feet.
Is he older, or is Ohtani just that fucking good?
Maybe he's that good. Yeah. I'm not going to say Ohtani's not that good, but maybe he's lost a little bit of bat speed or something, though, because 100-mile-an-hour pitch down the middle of the plate to Mike Trout seemed like a death sentence.
The third strike was a slider. It may have been a strike anyway, but it was definitely to the outside, and it was diving.
Yeah, no, that one, yeah.
But the stat I heard was Mike Trout has had a strikeout on 3 swings 24 times in his entire career, which I didn't look up how many at-bats he's had in his career, but it's in the thousands, of course. So many thousands. So to have 24 of those on his resume and to have that happen to him at that moment to end the World Baseball Classic is pretty remarkable. And my God, the bragging rights that Shohei Ohtani has in that locker room, the Angels locker room going forward, is insurmountable. So
yeah, it's going to be a fun year. Probably some good trash talking.
It's a fun year if they're on any other team other than the Angels, who are always in the toilet. I saw a social media post last night right after that where it showed like a trailer park home with a double wide driveway with 2 Bugattis parked in the front yard, like on the driveway. And it's like, that is the Angels, essentially. They have like the nicest stuff, and they're just on the worst team that just always underachieves inexplicably. But
yeah, it's kind of like a fantasy team gone bad. Like you get through the first 2 rounds and you end up with Ohtani and Trout on your team.
Yeah,
and then you lose. You like
everything
end up
else
in
goes
last.
wrong.
You end in last. Like that's essentially the Angels.
Yeah.
For the last what 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah,
I mean,
since
since
20
Trout's been
years.
there too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. God.
Well,
Um,
the good news for your White Sox is you came out unscathed despite your
as
greatest efforts to
predicted.
jinx them.
See, this goes back. So the Pete jinx, there was a couple scares after I cockily said to
Cockily. I like that.
said to Smitty, "Wow, the most amazing thing about this World Baseball Classic is the Sox are going to come out of it healthy." Now I was a little cocky because Eloy had been already out of the Dominican.
Oh,
Was
Dominica was already
was
Dominican
already
Republic was
out,
already
so he
out.
was
Yeah.
back with the team. But then what was that? A few hours later,
It was
Yoan
like
Moncada,
later on that afternoon, I think. Moncada had a collision in the outfield.
that looked like
That
nothing, by the way.
Well, that actually leads to our old segment, Bob's Bad Tweets, where Bob Nightingale tweeted out inaccurately in less than 140 characters. He had 3 things inaccurate. He, first of all, he said that Cuban outfielder Yoan Moncada, who is not only always has been a third baseman for the White Sox, he was playing third base at the time. I could understand if positions got changed or something for the national team, but he was playing third base at the time. Had a collision. The tweet continued. I think he did say bruised ribs. I thought at first he said broken ribs and a concussion. But the end of the tweet was, but Cuban officials say he's fine. Like, what? Like, that doesn't sound like anyone's fine with bruised ribs and a concussion. It turned out that he did indeed have bruised ribs, but apparently the concussion was overblown, or I don't know. I guess he's fine. Maybe we'll find out more about that, but it did not look, it was a collision. All collisions suck. That didn't look like the worst collision I've ever seen.
Oh, God, no.
I don't know. But the way Bob reported it in classic Bob Nightingale fashion was just ridiculous and misleading and inaccurate. So love to start the season with a Bob's Bad tweet. Certainly happy that no one was seriously injured, hopefully. But I thought that was just too perfect for Bob to chime in. But your jinx almost seemed to continue throughout the weekend and throughout this week, which was kind of nerve-wracking, I would think.
Oh, you mean when Eloy left the game with cramps?
Eloy left the game with cramps.
Yeah, he's playing today, so
I immediately replied to Chuck Garfine's tweet about it. Rest in peace, Eloy.
Oh, did you send the picture with the gloves?
I had the picture of the gloves draped over his empty jersey with signatures of his teammates all over it, in a funeral procession, essentially.
That whole thing, that was kind of the doing of one José Abreu when that happened. So
yeah, I remember that. He was very emotional about it. But
yes.
Also, there was another injury I thought, or injury scare that you mocked me for even bringing up. But
yeah, it was the Eloy one I made fun of you.
Oh, was it that one?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm like, it's just cramps. Calm down.
Yeah, I believe he played today, actually.
Yeah, he played.
He was supposed to be in the lineup. I didn't see if he actually played, but
I just looked to confirm.
Another bullet dodge there. So don't get cocky, kid.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm a White Sox fan, so we don't believe in jinxes. That's a Northside thing. So
maybe you should believe in them.
Maybe, yeah. Everyone's healthy. Everyone's healthy. Nothing to see here. Move along.
Nice.
I guess speaking of José Abreu.
Yeah, this might lead us right into maybe a controversial asshole of the week. I'm gonna let you run with this because I don't know. I'm sure you've got mixed feelings about all of this.
Well, first of all, I don't think I think everyone's allowed to have an opinion about things and this, put things out there when asked the question, but he is an emotional guy, and his reaction to the question, what will you miss about Chicago, was definitely dramatic, as he replied, it hurts. And that was all he said. And then, they pushed him on the matter, and he got into details, which I don't think was really surprising to me in regards to, and I don't know what you thought about this, but when he talked about it, wasn't really like a family last season, and
That's exactly what Jose Abreu said.
yeah, and
it's kind of surprising. It was kind of surprising he answered any questions about it. He's like, I would think he would come back with, I'm with the Houston Astros now. There's not really anything to say after that. I don't know what good it did him to say say anything essentially about his time in Chicago, other than, now he's in Houston, and that he's gonna do his best to win a championship with them.
right, and that was kind of my thought on the whole thing. It's like he had to get some sort of like, and it was a lot of like, some of it was, I wanted to stay, I wanted to end my career with the White Sox, but they disrespected me with whatever the offer remains undisclosed, right?
Well, and that's what's tough to comment about. Then, like, nobody knows what they were or weren't offering.
I
have a feeling it came down to, just 1 year, maybe a 1 year deal for whatever money.
That's my thought too.
He ended up with a 3-year deal, I believe, in Houston. I don't remember
at $20 million a year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty good deal. So he was definitely not disrespected by the Astros. There's no way the White Sox are going to offer that, especially with Andrew Vaughn being the heir apparent at first base and the logjam of first baseman, DHs, and everything else you've got to happen on that side of the field. So I think you actually said it would be stupid at one point to resign Jose Abreu.
Yeah, and I stick with that, especially at that. I don't, and I could be totally wrong, and I'm not wishing any ill will on him, just like I never wished ill will on Carlos Rodon or anything. Right. But there's certain signings that just don't make sense with the way your team is built, and unless they had moved someone on the team to make room for a DH spot, there was no reason to give Jose Abreu a $60 million contract for 3 years.
Well, and it's not like they haven't given him several large contracts. He had 2 large contracts with the White Sox,
right?
Did he not?
Yeah, this is almost like the Anthony Rizzo situation in a weird way, sort of.
Yeah,
like how that whole like the Cubs disrespected him, but like the Cubs offer we saw, and the Cubs offer for Anthony Rizzo was fine.
Yeah, 5 years, $75 million.
Yes, it was within range for what he
and he actually
producing.
took much less than that eventually to go with the Yankees. He may have already made up that same amount of money with an additional contract after that. But yeah, I mean, it's just I never understand why players need to talk about their former teams in the media. I mean, they can bitch about it all they want to their new teammates and family and friends, but it just doesn't do any good.
Yeah,
it doesn't accomplish anything other than creating acrimony with potential acrimony with a fan base that was in love with the guy for so many years. The other side of this that I think leads towards a legitimate asshole of the week is he didn't play the final home game of his White Sox career. He chose not to play for whatever reason, and
he doesn't like goodbyes.
Yeah, it just seems like a really immature, missed opportunity for the former MVP, the leader, so-called leader of the White Sox for so many years. We commented it at the time, but when you couple that with these, they're not the worst comments in the world, but you just kind of put it all together. It just leaves a bad taste. It's got to leave bad taste in all White Sox fans' mouths, but it's just kind of unfortunate. It'd be nice to see, a little less anger from Jose Abreu, considering what the Sox gave him and now now the beautiful life he's living in Houston. So
yeah, it's not like he ended up in a bad situation. He ended up in a really great situation.
Yeah.
The other thing too, which is there's a mixed bag on Jose Abreu from White Sox fans because there's a lot of animosity towards the White Sox front office because of last season. So it's split. Like some people aren't. We're probably in the minority by calling them asshole of the week, to be honest.
Oh, I think I think probably calling him asshole of the week's harsh, but I mean, we're just a stupid podcast, so we might as well create some controversy. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it
just sort of fits within our categories, but just adding that together, I think adding all the elements together, I think it's worth doing.
Yeah, exactly. And the last game things always bothered me.
That's a problem.
It's a problem for the fans.
Yeah, it's always going to be a problem.
Play one last time, you know. Now we get to see him play, but he's in a fucking Astros jersey. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting when the Astros come to town. See how that all works out.
Well, I look at it this way: usually, when a White Sox player returns that fans loved, they give him a standing ovation the first time, and then he gets booed the rest of the time. So
that'd be appropriate.
I think that's probably how it's going to shake down. So we'll see how that works. But that's all I got on that. So Jose Abreu, you are our asshole of the week. Moving along.
Yeah, what do we got next?
We got some final thoughts on the Mike Clevinger situation.
Oh,
the whole
yes. Let's put this to bed once and for all.
MLB concluded their investigation, and Clevinger will not be suspended. I'm not going to repeat myself. I've already said what I said. It was a little strange. The situation was strange.
All of it was strange.
All of it was really weird. Just having been through a not very friendly divorce, sometimes emotions run high from another individual and they make shit up sometimes. I mean, it happens. So, and I'm not saying that happened. I'm just saying
I want to be careful there because especially the way MLB worded things, they just said they concluded their investigation and there would be no punishment. They didn't say, they're not ruling on guilt or innocence. They're just finding out whether he deserves a suspension or not based on the domestic violence policy rules that they have in place. But they didn't say he didn't do anything. And I think what it comes down to is you just couldn't prove her allegations. And that's also why there are no, actual police charges filed, so I just think it's kind of a murky situation. It's behind them now. It's over. There's no further action unless MLB finds new evidence or new evidence is presented. This investigation is now closed. So that's good news. That's behind everybody, but it's just an ugly situation. It's hard to know what the truth is and how much Mike Clevinger has to blame, and if he's completely blameless. I'm sure with everything, it's somewhere in between.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely somewhere in between.
So I'm impressed that MLB finally concluded their investigation and why it took halfway through spring training to get to that point. If it just had ended 2 weeks prior before spring training even started, we wouldn't have been talking about it at all. So I don't know why they had to drag their feet. I thought it was going to last much longer since it did get to that point, but it was just kind of strange that it just, halfway through spring training, they finally figured it out and closed the door on it. So I think it's unfortunate by Major League Baseball. It's certainly unfortunate for Mike Clevinger that he had to go through that. He did agree to voluntary, I don't know if it's counseling or what it was. So, which seems like a positive. I don't think that's necessarily an admission of guilt. Certainly not. But that seems like a responsible thing to do, whether it's, I didn't see if it was anger management or if it's couples counseling or I don't know, conflict resolution or what it is, but he has agreed to enter a players association program for that. So it seems like a positive too. So hopefully we never have to talk about this shit with Mike Clevinger or anyone else ever again.
Yeah, hopefully. I doubt that will be the case.
Yeah.
But there's a trend.
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah.
That trend sends some people to play in Japan. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Yeah. But since we're in the bitter portion of the not so fun loving portion of the show,
we're getting this out of the way early and having nothing but fun stuff at the end of the podcast. We did that the opposite way a couple episodes ago. That was just brutal. So I think we're smart putting the shit up front and the fun stuff at the end.
Yeah, little ebb and flow this episode.
Yeah.
I got a sexual harassment, and before we
that's an old segment. That was almost the title of this podcast, or I almost wanted to call it this podcast. It was an old segment when we had the White Sox in our regular In the Hole podcast. I think that was just, or it was like a special segment where I would give you shit for your White Sox, or you would give your own White Sox some shit. But I always thought sexual harassment was a hilarious term to use. So you've got some sexual harassment for your own team right now.
I do. And Smitty and I were talking before we got on the air here to do the podcast about, going to some games this spring and summer, and
looking into a couple April games.
Yeah. And he was like, "Oh, are you already going?" And I'm like, "Well, no, we didn't get our 10-game pass this year." And obviously he was shocked.
I was shocked.
He was shocked. I know. I thought we weren't going to be able to do the podcast. But he pulled it together, and
somehow.
And it turns out, we were looking in tickets, and the White Sox have complicated ticket buying yet again at the ballpark. Oh, no. Another layer has been put on top of everything, and you would think that they, had won the World Series or went deep in the playoffs last year by like raising prices and how the seats are approached, but it's kind of goofy. So what they did is we used to buy lower box seats, and that consisted of sections like one on the third base side.
Yours is in like 126 or something like that, weren't you? Or someplace around there, 135 or
yeah. It was like from one God, I'm trying to remember. Like whatever. It was along the third base line, not in the corners, but like along like
between third base and the pole, maybe.
Very, very actually they were the same section when I had season tickets. So I think those
way
were like
back in the day.
Way back in the day, like
the mid-aughts.
The mid-aughts, 144 or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
And you could get a seat anywhere. If there were tickets available in the first row, you could get them. If there were tickets
I've purchased those before, yes.
Yes. If there were tickets available in the third row, so you could just use your vouchers wherever you wanted. Well, now they've decided that only row 25 and back qualify for that seat price.
Fuck that.
And everything in front of that is a higher price. And then,
my God.
And they've created pricing tiers within the pricing tiers. And
so what is the incentive for you to buy a 10-game pack? Do you get anything like any kind of benefits?
If they make the playoffs, you get your dibs on on playoff tickets. But no, there is no incentive from a day-to-day basis, because one, they're not going to sell out. They're not going to sell out even if they are winning.
It's going to be the end of the summer when they're, fighting for a playoff spot or whatever, that before, I could see that before the fans are totally going to show up and the stadium sold out. Right. Opening day will be sold out, but April, May, June, July, even, I think you're not going to have any trouble getting a ticket.
As we were also talking about, somebody was asking when I'm going to my first game, and I said the April 6th, the end of the opening homestand, and I have my run of tickets
You
right
could get
now.
anything you wanted.
Anything I
Wow.
want through the White Sox.
What day of the week is that?
It's a third, and that's why one of the
Thursday
reasons I
day
picked
game?
it Thursday at 1:10. I mean,
Nice.
in April, like that's and there's
You might need your coat.
Right, and I can get them on StubHub for even cheaper than through the White Sox. The same seats I want. So it's like, what is you guys have now? You've added another layer of complex onto buying tickets at the park for a team that's severely underachieved, thus alienating a fan base that already feels alienated by you from hiring Tony La Russa a few years ago and then completely shitting the bed last year. Yeah. So
what the fuck? You think they would make it easier for you to want to come to games?
Right.
Wow.
Right. I mean,
so you could essentially you could get the same area of seats that you were used to last year. You just have to pay more for it. Is that how it works?
Yeah, exactly.
So they really just raised the ticket prices for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What the fuck? 81-81 last year. What?
I know.
The most disappointing team in your lifetime.
Yes.
Why are you going back at all? This is maybe this should be my impromptu asshole question. How can you go back to your White Sox at all after destroying your life last year? What a miserable fucking experience that was for you. The most disappointing team you've ever had.
That's right.
And now they're asking for more money for the same tickets that you had last year.
Well, I mean, I can go back because I can get the tickets for last year's prices on StubHub.
Yes.
That's why I'm not getting a 10-game pass and not committing to it right now.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's your silent protest. I salute that. I respect that. I think the other kind of White Sox fan just doesn't go and gets angry and justifiably so, and tells the White Sox to fuck off.
What I would say to you too is, and you're 100% correct on, I couldn't even watch. I don't know if you remember us talking about this, but I could barely watch playoff baseball last year because of how upset I was over. Like, it actually ruined baseball for me going into the fall. But spring is upon us. A new season.
Hope
a new
springs
season.
Eternal.
Hope springs
you naive
eternal.
Little
a new
son
hope.
of a bitch.
A new hope.
Oh, there comes another Star Wars reference.
But anyway,
that might be 3 or 4 on this episode already.
Maybe
subtly.
But yeah, so I'm jacked. Our guys performed well in the WBC, so things are looking. I think it's impossible for things not to be better than last year, but maybe I'm overly optimistic. But just changing the manager was such a step in the right direction.
Boy.
There was such low-hanging fruit for improvement that, just like Tony's low-hanging balls, there were low-hanging fruit for improvement. You know what is a question that is gonna be interesting? I didn't put this on the list, but it just popped in my head because we were talking about the team. And
it's your podcast.
Real quick here. I mean, I think there's a legitimate chance that Lurie Garcia could get cut.
I've listened to a couple of the White Sox Talk podcasts with Chuck Garfien and I think it's Ryan McGuffey.
Yeah.
Garf and Guff. Yeah. They talked about that. When you look at there's like 3 guys that are eligible to be cut, essentially, that it looks like. And how it couldn't be Lurie Garcia, I don't know. I mean, there's no reason to keep him. There's no loyalty, absurd loyalty from your deranged manager anymore. So you'd think Lurie Garcia would be out. What do they owe him? 10 more million on his 3-year deal? Did he have a 3-year, $15 million deal? I thought. I don't know why that sticks in my head. I might be wrong, but it was absurd.
Wasn't it
whatever
$3
it was
million a year?
Maybe that's what it was, but it can't be much money. I mean, it's going
to
be
change.
Yeah, it's going to be in the millions, but I don't see how he can make your roster. But actually, that's a good thing to bring up, because I don't even know when final roster cuts need to be made. We are within
6 days, right?
1 week from opening day.
Yeah, 8 days.
next Thursday is opening day. So we're recording this on a Wednesday night. Yeah. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to see that final cut. And I might be able to hear the shouts of joy from the South Side, 250 miles away here in mid Michigan. If Louis Garcia was indeed cut.
I have a very strange feeling in the Beverly area of Chicago, fireworks will be lit off if Garcia gets cut.
You would know. You used to live there.
Oh, they lit fireworks off for their bitter group. You talk about bitter, angry Sox fans. That's where they're at.
You come by it honestly. I get it.
Yeah, I've been exposed to it my entire life. I'm a product of my environment. But hey, let's move on to something fun and happy. A wonderful documentary that was put together during the pandemic called Last Comiskey. And it was it's only on YouTube, and it was put together. Now I don't know the full history. He's just a fan, right? He's just a White Sox fan.
It sounds like a couple of brothers. I'm not sure that they were film producers before this, that they may have had some experience in it, but they're about our age. I think they're in their late 40s, early 50s. Got bored during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And decided to put together a documentary about the last season of the old Comiskey Park, where they were able to get archived footage. They did a lot of Zoom interviews at the time and put together a really fucking cool YouTube documentary, actually.
I mean, I got a little choked up on on the last episode, and it's funny, they had the no-hitter game I was at that we just talked about a few podcasts ago.
Yeah.
The White Sox winner no-hitter against the Yankees. But like there were the first episode, I was like, okay, this is decent, but there wasn't anything like overly compelling in the first one. I thought it was like kind of stuff I knew. But when I thought 2, and I know you haven't seen 3 yet, got really interesting. Yeah. And 2 especially, the vendor's perspective.
Yeah.
A segment was nothing short of like, just as a White Sox fan, just brilliant.
That's what was so cool about this documentary. It's not just about the White Sox 1990 season. It's about the history and life, the life of what Comiskey Park used to be. And I thought the color of that, like filling in all the little stories here, there, all having the vendors being involved. That was so cool. Nancy Faust is a large part of this. The organist playing with inside the crowd. By the way, I've got a couple hot takes about Nancy Faust that might be controversial.
Ooh, all right.
Watching again, I've only seen episodes 1 and 2 of this. I'll definitely watch the third and final Last Comiskey this weekend. But Nancy Faust, number 1, she was kind of hot back in the day.
She was
the thin blonde in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah,
she wasn't bad looking. The other hot take is she's kind of an asshole. She's the one that created the "Na Na Hey Hey Goodbye" song to escort failing relievers for the opposition off the field in a very taunting and asshole-ish way. So I was kind of surprised that she's kind of an asshole. It's great. Such a sweet lady, but an ass.
You think she's a sweet lady? She'll cut you.
That was one of my takeaways from this. Another was, of course, I never went to Old Comiskey. I didn't move to Chicago until 7 years after it closed, actually. But so my first experience with the White Sox was going to the new Comiskey, which at that time was like the fucking Death Star. It was the most depressing, blue concrete,
freaking ugly,
terrifying upper deck that I've ever been to. But seeing the footage, I do remember this as a kid watching games. The Old Comiskey is a lot like Tiger Stadium. They were that I grew up going to and watching games at. They were built within 2 years of each other. I think 1910 and 1912. Tiger Stadium didn't close till 1999, so they had about the same lifespan. But if you look at them, they're the same kind of jewel box design. with the upper deck going most of the way around through the outfield. The upper deck in the outfield, like I know in Tiger saying it actually hung over the outfield. I'm not sure if it actually did. It almost looked like it for Comiskey, but very similar design. So similar in a lot of ways. I do remember the one thing as a kid, of course, now my career has gone into graphic design. So I noticed stupid shit like this, but Comiskey was always green. All the seats and walls and everything were green, but all the railings were painted yellow.
Yeah, they had that bright yellow.
I never understood that. Like, what? Because it didn't have anything to do with your color scheme or anything like that. So I didn't understand, like, why are there these yellow railings? But that's just something that I just always remember as a kid. Like, oh, you could instantly flip on a game. I actually couldn't just flip on a game back then, but if I did see something, I knew immediately that it was old Comiskey just because of those yellow railings. But
yeah, I wonder if I'm assuming it was for safety reasons, like just so
got to be able to see the railings. Yes.
Yeah, they know how drunk people got there. So
that's another part of this documentary that they do not shy away from how drunk that place was and how it just sounds like a fucking party. Not a place to bring a child to necessarily.
And I went there a lot as a child.
That speaks of how you've turned out. But
so yeah, I'm actually gonna watch. I think I will view it again. Maybe not like 1, 2, and 3. I'm definitely gonna watch 2 again because having the whole beer vendors thing, and then now I don't want to give anything away, but is that
they actually did close the stadium and you did not win the World Series that year?
No. I'm
sorry to spoil it.
I'm not going to give anything away to you. Is that the same episode where they actually did the critiquing about moving the walls in?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so that's going to be something that's interesting in episode 3. So,
well, yeah, I actually heard Chuck was interviewing the director today on the newest White Sox Talk podcast. So I heard him talk about that a little bit, but of course I forgot the guy's name. We never mentioned their name. I'll put it in the notes or when we put the video in, at least.
Cool.
I'll give proper accreditation to the film, but I'm wondering what it's such a cool documentary. They just put it on YouTube. Like, how are they just getting ad revenue from YouTube? It seems like,
I mean, I got a commercial like every freaking 3 minutes. So
yeah, it's pretty well done. You'd think they could have sold it to somebody, Major League Baseball or the White Sox or somebody, make some real coin off it. So I hope they're doing well enough to keep doing these things. They're talking about, they've gotten such a huge response from this that people are sending old photographs and other stories and stuff that they might do a 4th episode.
Wow.
Like extra innings, kind of like how Ken Burns did.
Yeah.
With the baseball documentary. But they're also talking about just doing something completely different with the old Chicago Stadium for the Blackhawks and Bulls, doing the same kind of walk through the history of that. So that might be their next project that they might actually
equally as drunk.
yeah, they started telling some stories about that too. So I never saw the old Chicago Stadium either, but
that place was fucking loud, man.
It sounded crazy.
Holy shit. Like deafening. Like hurt your ears when the crowd would go crazy.
Nice.
It was pretty cool. One thing as I watched that, Smitty, I don't know if this popped into your head, but it kind of gave me hope for our grand idea of doing the documentary on the worst season in White Sox history, the most dysfunctional season in White Sox
2016?
history. 2016. Like it really did. Like the way they did it, I'm like, if you could get, now ours would be more difficult to get people to participate in because we're definitely talking about something super negative versus paying homage and reminiscing about all the great times at this ballpark. We're literally talking about this season was so unbelievably dysfunctional. You can't even believe it actually happened.
I'm not sure how much support we'll get for this.
I don't know. I'd still love to try to do it.
I like the idea, especially in the shadow of the Cubs golden generation and finally winning a World Series after 108 years. It couldn't have been more perfectly juxtaposed.
Yeah, I mean, you can even at like one point, like every now and then, you'd be like, meanwhile, on the other side of the city.
Fortunately, we have this all documented, our thoughts on our blog at Major League A-Holes and actually at soxtypething.com.
Yes.
They all exist for eternity as long as WordPress doesn't go under and lose all our files. But we were writing blogs back then about everything that was happening, and it was an easy time to be a baseball blogger in the city of Chicago,
Oh God.
talking about everything that was happening on both sides of town. So
yeah,
maybe that should be our goal. 2026, a 10-year retrospective on the 2016 season from both sides of town's perspective.
I'll start hitting the archival footage now.
We've got 3 years to figure this out. Hey, those guys just got bored and made a documentary. Why can't we do it?
I know.
We'll figure it out.
We got to get Rick Hahn. We got to get him as like what he said. We got him to repeat what he said on that other podcast.
We're gonna have to kidnap him and
where he was just like, he did what?
Somehow I don't think we're gonna get any answers to any of that shit. But my God, I can only imagine. Maybe we'll make up our own dramatic reenactments.
Oh, that would be even funnier.
Artistic license and
yes. But yeah, so anyway, in closing, White Sox fans, actually probably like I kind of feel like if you're a baseball fan, you could take enjoyment. If you love the history of baseball, it's really it all 3 episodes in and out are probably like maybe 90 minutes total.
Yeah, I don't think they're super long. They're on YouTube. The whole world has access to YouTube. You don't have to subscribe to Prime or Netflix or anything like that. So it's out there.
Check it out.
If you call yourself a White Sox fan, you should probably watch this thing.
Yeah, if you are a White Sox fan and haven't watched it yet, then I'm saying you're not a White Sox fan.
Maybe there are assholes of the week.
Yeah, maybe. If you have not watched
Get Jose off the hook.
Fucking asshole. Not Jose. All right. Moving along, it's time to bring back one of our segments. I think did we hatch this last year?
It was last year.
Or patience.
Panic or patience.
And let me tell you, if you're on White Sox Twitter, it's panic. What is wrong with Dylan Cease? He had 2 terrible spring outings, and then he came back in his last outing and had like 6 or 8 strikeouts and looked dominating, and still, I don't know. I'm looking at Cease. I think there's something wrong with him. Folks, it's spring fucking training. The inflated ERAs are not to be
meaningless.
They're not to be blown out of proportion. Guys are working on things. Who knows? They're not going to come out and say, like, maybe he's working on a 5th fucking pitch or something. Like, there's shit that is being worked out. And in his, now he's getting to the tune-up games.
Right.
And in his first tune-up game, he pitched quite well.
Okay.
So
I'm guessing he's got one more start.
Probably one more start. Yeah. So how about a little patience on the side of Dylan Cease? I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt. He's continued to grow every season. It's not like he grew and then took some step back in the regular season or anything like that. He has just continued to progress as a pitcher. So let's go with like he's going to continue to progress as a pitcher. So I say patience in this. I don't know what you think, Smitty. Probably patience. I don't know.
I would say patience. We are. What is this? March 21st, I believe. 22nd, maybe.
22nd.
Yeah. I think we're going to be all. I think he's going to be all right. He's still got his slider. That might be one of the best pitches in baseball. That has a poem written about it.
Slide.
And dramatic readings across all of social media, including this place.
One of the best moments ever on this podcast.
I mean,
maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it's White Sox Twitter. It's all Twitter. I mean, we can make fun of specifically White Sox because this is Sox type thing, but all fan bases freak out about stupid shit like this too. So I think that is much overblown. If you see this in the first few weeks during the regular season, that's a totally different story. I think it could be a subject for another panic or patience, and we can debate the merits of either side of that. But to do this in spring training naive and immature. I think we don't have to worry about these things. It'd be nice to see him put together a couple good starts to close
exactly.
spring training, but even if he does not, I think you can practice some patience and everything will probably work out okay considering the track record of one Dylan Cease.
All right, which leads so nicely into tonight's final segment. I put out an a-hole poll. Haven't done one of those in a while, and
very famous a-hole poll.
And it was who should be the opening day starter for the White Sox. And
these are fun questions to think about. I like how you do the a-hole polls on Sox Type Thing on Twitter.
And you know, I always give somewhat of a colorful reply. So your options were
options are very unique. You never keep them simple. Which
yes,
it definitely has its own style.
Cease, spring be damned. Lynn, he's earned it. Giolito, comeback kid. And I put Clevinger with just an ellipsis because I didn't really know what to say about him given the situation in the offseason. So
I think didn't somehow Clevinger got more votes than Giolito even?
Clevinger, I believe probably got one to two votes on this, but Cease.
That might be a joke. That's got to be a joke. Somebody voting for Clevinger on this.
It could be a joke. 63% voted for Dylan Cease. So despite all the panic on WST, it seems like people have come to their senses.
Yeah.
25% voted for Lance Lynn, and I kind of put them in the order I thought they would come in, but Giolito, he's getting no love, man. He got zero. No.
He's been your opening day starter for the last 3 years, I believe, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. He got no
just
love.
Kicked out the door on his walk year.
Jeez, and then Clevinger got 12% of the vote.
That is a shocking result at the end of that poll.
Yes,
I think Cease is the obvious choice. I like the idea of Lynn coming in second. I think that makes sense to me. I guess the shocking part of this is the Giolito example right there. I mean, like I said, he's been your opening day starter for the last 3 years. Terrible, pretty fucking terrible year last year. He bulked up last year, and apparently he's lost that bulk again. So I don't know why baseball players bulk up at any point. Seems to always be a mistake. Like I'll derail this podcast for a minute, but say as Suzuki on the north side, he gained like 25 pounds of muscle in the offseason, immediately strained his oblique.
Yeah.
Who didn't see that coming? Like every time somebody gets bigger in the offseason, there's always an oblique injury. It seems like there's always something against their typical performance. I never understood that. So Giolito, hyper cerebral guy, maybe one of the smarter people in all of baseball. He almost gets in his own way. He thinks too much. He overthinks things. So maybe getting back to the way he was in his really good season from 2 years ago might be the way to go. But I could see why Sox fans might not have as much faith in him to be your opening day starter for what it's worth. But
yeah, I just found it, like you said, it probably was a joke just to see the funny result that Clevinger actually got any votes.
You put it up there. You're on a comedic tee for them. So yeah,
I did. I left Kopech off on purpose. I wanted Clevinger in there. So
there you go.
Yeah. So that is it for
thanks for everyone.
Thing.
Thanks for everyone for participating in the a-hole poll. I'm sure you'll have many more to come. Yeah, if that's it, we might as well wrap up this episode 19 of Sox Type Thing. You can find Pete over there tweeting away on Twitter at Sox Type Thing. You can find me trying to play devil's advocate
all the time
to everything you have to say at Major League A-holes.
Troll boy over there.
I am. You can find us on the web, all these podcasts and our videos and all of our old blog is all there for everyone at majorleagueaholes.com and soxtypething.com. And you can find this podcast as well as In the Hole podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So with that, I think you can declare.
One moment.
Wow,
I
dramatic
want
pause.
a free. I'm gonna do some free advertisements because the most important episode that occurs every year on In the
Oh,
Hole is
nice.
happening next week. The Nostra Dumbass prediction show, folks. You're gonna want to listen to it. We'll cover the Sox on that. As our predictions for the AL Central will be done on that program. You cannot miss it. I don't know if it can get any worse than our predictions last year. It's quite possible it could, but I doubt it. But we'll see.
We've been doing our predictions in some form or another for what, 12, 13 years now on this blog and now the podcast.
Yeah. I don't think it was ever as bad as last year.
We predict every division winner, Cy Young, MVPs, rookies of the year. Then we go through the playoffs and predict our World Series winners. And we couldn't have been, probably last year was our worst year by far.
Yeah.
The weirdest part of that is you and I agreed on almost everything. That was what should have told us we were going to be way, way off. So hopefully we are very different this year and somebody can walk away with some glory, as we will always do the end of year podcast where we recap our Nostra dumbass predictions and see who was the bigger Nostra dumbass out of the two of us, at least.
It was a draw last year.
Yeah, equally dumb.
Equally dumb. All right. So with that,
you can declare
this podcast is over.
Peace.
Word Hole Media.